Hi, this is Billie Beene here with another segment of Truth by Billie Beene, episode 304. Today's date, March 25, 2022. Texas earthquakes. We'll get to it. A Ukraine update. Buceti Mountains in Romania. What's going on? And EBS. The White Hats are in charge of it now, so we would like to bring it on. Okay, let's begin with the news. Mary Greeley is just reporting this morning, and that catches my eye. I live in Texas. Earthquakes in Texas. So I'll show you where they are, what's going on. So, it's about, let's see, in this area of Texas, about here, Van Horn, and some other locations in New Mexico. There's been about 47 shallow earthquakes, up to 4.4 in the last 24 hours. So a little bit of shaking is going on in that area of Texas. I couldn't justify not mentioning that. Okay. Now, I'm initially going to bring out actually a new kind of segment I've been adding recently. We know that, I've spoken about God as the editor of my videos, how things come together for me, how I notice patterns. So this is a pattern I've noticed recently. This has to do with the Bay of Pigs. And the Bay of Pigs happened in the 1960s, involved Cuba, involved the CIA, the shadow CIA, and President Kennedy. The shadow CIA had recruited exiles from Cuba in Miami, trained them, and then wanted them to go into Cuba, and then supposedly the U.S. military would supply air support for them. Well, at the last moment, the CIA took away the air support. They lied to President Kennedy, and it was a failure. Bay of Pigs. Okay, well, recently, I've been picking up on this coming out, and this was 107, and I think his interview was with Nino Rodriquez, and it just was republished yesterday, which would be March 24, and it was actually an interview that took place January 3. So it's an old item that's being republished and brought forth again. Typically what I'm seeing is that's part of a pattern. Now also, just a few days ago, there was Bay of Pigs. It's like a news segment, and that was on Crossroads with Joshua Phillippe. And when I saw that, I'm thinking, what's the purpose of this? What's going on? So I'm not quite sure, but I'm bringing this forth because I see this is some pattern of release. Now we know, as I've explained, the Bay of Pigs was the result of a traitor. So, maybe that's the message. We'll see. Okay. Now, suspicious observers is a science-based show. It comes on like 5:30, 6 in the morning, and he usually gives space weather like that. Occasionally, he comments. And what he's commenting about is the JB New World Order comment we saw on TV recently. And where JB was saying that the United States needed to lead the world into the new world order. Now, just, I think that was last night, that was Pastor Paul Begley and Mike from Around the World. Now, Mike from Around the World is on Pastor Paul Begley's prophecy show on Thursdays, and he's been on there for years, and we know that Mike is affiliated with the U.S. government because Mike knows stuff. Okay, so they were both talking about this TV release, and Pastor Paul Begley was saying, you know, I saw that on TV and I wondered, is he in Brussels already? That was for a global meeting. And no, not at all. The mainstream media had put it out before it actually happened. We recall, we saw that happen around 9/11 when Building 7 went down, and the news people in England were saying that Building 7 had gone down, and then, the U.S. news, mainstream media had to say, no, not yet, it's 15 more minutes. Orchestrated. So, that's going on, but I took note that Suspicious Observers was also mentioning that, and he said even traitors can speak truth. So we do see that does fit in with the Bay of Pigs release, traitor. And we're seeing another comment. All right. Now, another pattern of release. This is RVK News out of Iceland. And this is what I see. He was standing in front of a yellow lighthouse. And it was the same yellow that we saw in a candy bar he just took out of his shirt a few days ago and was talking about. Okay, so I'm seeing a pattern. And he's standing in front of the lighthouse. He looks out to the water. Oh, I love the water now. It's green. So there's that. And then he had this question. How do you translate the word? This is an Iceland word. H-L-A-U-P. U-P. How do you translate that? Does it mean barrel of a gun, echo, glacial flood, jelly, or race? And then he said, it means echo. So, we're just seeing patterns. All right. Now, we have, Mr. MBB333. You know, his show is about a different phenomenon in the sky. And he's saying, what was that in the sky over Houston at night on March 23 in Houston, Texas? And you see the image, it's like a vertical orange in the sky on the east side of Houston. We don't know. Okay, so now we're going to get to our Ukraine update, and I would like to make this general statement. Russia is in the process of liberating Ukraine, and Ukraine is still a part of Russia. So what's been going on is technically a civil war for about 8 years. So I'll get into that. But you can distinguish between who is closer to telling you truth about what's going on in Ukraine in their words. If they're talking about Russia liberating Ukraine, it's closer to being truth, likely. If they're talking about Russia invading Ukraine, no, that's the mainstream media. All lies, too. All right. So, now this is Gene Decode. He was interviewed by Dave the Patriot. And Judy Byington's actually bringing this out. We're seeing a lot of Z, and Peter the Insider with the Alien Contact Intel Organization brought this out a good 4 or 5 weeks ago about the Z being on Russian equipment. And Judy is saying this means the operation is underway. So we know that's going on. Now, we're seeing that, and this is coming out with Gene Decode is bringing out information, as is Regis Tremblay with an interview he did, and other sources. Okay, Russia hit and took out a training center, and they neutralized 100 plus Ukraine special forces, and that was near O-V-R-O-C-K. So Gene Decode is bringing this out. So far, also multiple sources, including Scott Ritter. Russia has taken out a fuel depot, and ammo depot. Now, Gene Decode is bringing this new information out. We know we heard from Cliff High that the war, there would be biolabs in 30 nations. And according to Cliff High's Webbot data, the warlike effort would take 18 years. Gene Decode is saying that it's in 33 nations. So that's increased. So we can maybe up 18 years to 20 years of warlike activity globally. All right. Now, Gene Decode brought this out. Russia has taken out many biolabs. I think it's about 32 biolabs that are in Ukraine. I'll give you some locations. So here is Ukraine. We would have on this area Luhansk, Donetsk. This is the Donbass area. We have Kherson right here. We have Odessa. We have Kiev. We have Lviv. We have Kharkiv. In this area, we have Ivano-Franken. We have Tremblay. We have Vinny. We have Denep. I'm not fully saying the words. I can't. Okay, we have Chernobyl. But these are some of the lab areas that have been taken out. Crimea's down here. That Gene Decode is reporting that Russia has neutralized, and they're taking the biolabs out with thermobaric bombs. And the way the thermobaric bomb works, thermobaric, is it's heat, and it creates a vacuum that hits the target. It's a precision hit, and creates this vacuum that then draws everything it hit up into it and incinerates it. So it's the perfect weapon to use for biolabs. You don't want that stuff released. Okay. So yeah, Gene Decode is now saying, all right, Gene Decode, liberated are the cities of Odessa, and Mariupol. Now, in Mariupol, I had a Patriot subscriber who was, some weeks ago, sent information. His wife is from Mariupol, and he said that when this began at the end of February, that his wife's mother and niece and 11 family members were hiding in a basement in Mariupol. And Israeli News Live, Stephen Ben-Nun had information about, he put out a video, and I'll link it for you, about the Russian Slavic people being able to come up out of those basements. And they said they had been there since February 26 without food or water. And Russia has liberated Mariupol, and this happened a couple of days ago. So the Slavic people there, that would include the family members of one of my Patriot subscribers, are able to come up out of those basements and get resupplied and have access to medical treatment or as is needed. Okay, and the same is true in Odessa. So Russia has liberated those areas. Now, the biolabs that Russia took out, 3 in Lib'd, 1 in Aphiv, Bildamir, Trichonix, and all of the Luhansk and Donetsk area, all underneath that is a deep underground area that's been liberated. 2 in Dnipro, 1 in Venitavas, Tenepril, China, as President Trump used to say, China. Well, there's 3 China locations that there were biolabs in. And so that's going on. Now we have Nick Veniamin is interviewing Alan Fountain. Alan was former CIA and has a lot of info. So he's saying in Ukraine, the deep state is close to collapse. President Putin takes out the biolabs. And in Ukraine, what you see on mainstream media generally are lies. And the mainstream media is putting out videos taken years ago in other countries, and movies and video games. And he's saying that inside Ukraine, Colin Kalinske is behind money that went to Hunter Biden and also President Zelensky. Okay, so that's going on. Traitors everywhere. All right, so Elena Danan is bringing out some information about Ukraine, and that, as we know, the ARC ships have activated there. She's saying that what you hear on mainstream media are lies, and that the Earth Alliance has the keys to bring forth the economy and change it over to the quantum financial system, and that we are in a transition process. Yes, that would be true. Okay, Regis Tremblay as interviewed, and he's talking about, he interviewed an American who's been living in Moscow for about 10 to 15 years. And he is on YouTube. Okay. And he's saying that Ukraine has been killing Russian ethnic people for 8 years. And Jim Willey, a PhD economist from Costa Rica, had brought out the number 40,000. So really there's been a civil war going on inside Ukraine, with Ukraine slaughtering Ukrainian citizens who are of a certain genetic set, and that's Slavic Russian, white Christians. Okay, so that's been going on. And now Russia is changing over. Countries that are unfriendly to Russia now have to buy all their supplies from Russia in Russian rubles. Russia is no longer accepting the US dollar for any purchases. Okay. And now we have the inside Russia. Russia can seize Western assets, and most of the 70% of the U.S. companies inside Russia have suspended operation and left Russia. And Russia is only taking rubles now for energy and other purchases. President Putin's popularity inside China, inside Russia, is up to 80%. His people approve of him going in to rescue Russian-speaking Slavic people. All right. Now, so he is pursuing the military objectives identified by Russia when they went into Ukraine. And I'll go into the areas and what's it going to look like for Russia to leave Ukraine. Okay. Now, Regis Tremblay is also talking. He's hearing the Balkan nations may try to release a nuclear weapon on Ukraine to take out the Russian forces. I think that's highly unlikely because what I'm hearing is most nukes have been neutralized. Okay, but he's talking about the Baltic nations. So here is Ukraine, we have Moldova, we have Slovenia, we have Croatia, we have Romania, we have Bosnia, Herzegovina, Serbia, Bulgaria, and then it's Montenegro, Kosovo, Macedonia, Albania, Greece, and a small part of Turkey. So we'll see how that's going to go. I don't really see that happening. Now, Gene Decode is, bringing this out that the current alliance, we have God, we have President Trump, we have the alliance. Underneath this, we would have President Putin, Chairman Z+. This is currently up to 38 military nations, and they're bringing in a NATO alliance. Not the old NATO, because that's going away. Now, so Israeli News Live is talking about how the Ukraine military treats its soldiers and its citizens. because those ethnic Russians who live in Luhansk and Donbass and other areas are technically Ukrainian citizens. They had kept them shut up inside basements and used them as human shields and did not provide food or water since the end of February. So, yeah, these people were suffering. Stephen Benoon has a video on it. I'll link it for you. Okay, Scott Ritter, Marine military analyst. He's talking about the Ukraine military. Now, Scott Ritter is saying that they are fighting very hard, but he's also saying there's no way they're going to win against Russia. So the force is 2,000 regular Ukraine. They have reserves plus, and we know they have some mercenaries. And he's saying their total, so that's about 350. So their total is about 600,000. Now Scott is saying in standard military strategy, you would want your strength to be 3-1. So you would want, if you had 3-1, this would be 1.8 million. And what Russia came in with is 200,000, which is just flip on traditional military strategy. So Russia is combating Ukraine from a position of 1-3, but they're winning. Now, Scott Ritter is saying that Ukraine has been a proxy for NATO, and what Russia has said to the Ukrainian soldiers is stay in your barracks. And so that's going on. Now, Scott Ritter is also verifying as a Marine U.S. military analyst who has decades of experience and has worked for the UN, that for 8 years the Ukrainian military has been slaughtering its own citizens inside Luhansk and Donetsk simply because they spoke Russian. And some of the things that Scott is bringing out that Russia is doing while this is going on right now, Russia is putting in a permanent military inside Belarus. And they are, and it says that now NATO is withdrawing military from Bulgaria, Poland, Hungary, and the Balkans. So I guess the people in NATO see writing on the wall. Okay. Scott Ritter is giving these numbers for the dead. He's giving 8,000 for Ukraine, 1,000 for Russia, and 800 civilians. He's saying that these major groups, this far right-wing group Azov is going down, the Mercer going down, as are the Ukrainian soldiers. Russia is simply, when they capture them, they get them to sign a piece of paper. They're not going to take up arms against Russia and send them home. Russia has no interest in prisoner of war. And the mercs, the mercenaries, have no rights as prisoners of war. Okay, now Scott is saying for Russia to settle, this is what it will take. It will be unlawful inside Ukraine for right-wing groups like this Azov to exist. There will be no foreign troops inside Ukraine. Ukraine will have permanent neutrality and will not join NATO. And I have seen some maps. I'll show you. Here is Ukraine. Crimea's down here. Okay. This is Luhansk and Donetsk. And those are independent republics. This is the Donbass area. Mariupol is down here. Odessa, Kharkiv. This is Kiev, Lviv. All right. The ethnic Russian-speaking people who have been deprived of their rights and locked into their basements and used as human shields and other things, and have been shot at and try for forces to kill them for 8 years by the Ukrainian military, it's highly unlikely that these people are going to be reconciled back to this area, this corrupt government. Now, the map that Dr. William Mount brought out was that it would go like this, and all of this area would be independent. Crimea belongs to Russia. These areas would just be independent. I know for a fact that there's an ARC ship in this area in Kherson and one also right here. I believe that Russia would really want to keep those areas also. So I think that the military operation, since Russia has been successful in taking out 32 of the biolabs, and it's believed there's still a few more, that is going to go on. Now, Russia, according to Scott, Russia has not violated any of its contracts for energy. It has not cut off any selling of energy to any nation, and Russia provides 30 to 40% of Europe's energy. Okay, and Scott is talking about the biolabs. Yeah, they use thermobaric bombs. They've captured 2 of the labs intact, and they have all of the documents. So, yeah, that's going on. Let's move on to sci-fi. Okay, sci-fi. And this has to do with the report by Dr. Michael Salla. And it involves the Buceti Mountains in Romania. Now, I'll go over this with you. This has also been a timed release of information. We first heard about this a few months ago, 2 to 3 months ago. And that was on Jessica Ariel Morocco, who interviewed Peter the Insider, who's involved with the Alien Contact Intel Organization. That was 2 to 3 months ago. Then we had Kelly Penny. She's used to be an engineer for Chrysler, and she's now a truther. Okay, came out with information. Penny's information was, about 1 month ago. So we see a release of information, a pattern of release. And now Michael Salla came out with this information today. Michael interviewed Peter Moon, who's written books. He's also been to Romania 11 times. He's worked with authors there. He also translates Romanian. And his primary interest, Peter Moon, initially was with the Montauk That's time travel. And then he got involved in going to Romania. Now, what's inside Romania is secret tech. And it's been known about since 2003. The U.S. had satellites, and they were doing deep penetration radar. And what they found in Romania was an anomaly, and they couldn't penetrate it. So they went to the Veniamin-int, and outside it they could detect it had a frequency shield on the mountain. They knew the anomaly was inside the mountain. So some people died trying to penetrate that frequency shield. When I read about the description, it reminded me of the Ark of the Covenant inside the Bible, because we know that men and animals could not touch it. So that happened. Then they discovered on the side of the mountain there was like a handprint, and then they found a Romanian who had an unusual birth and education process. Brad Caesar. So I think this was about 2008 or 9, and his handprint fit this, and then that opened the frequency shields to the mountain, and inside the mountain they went in and they found tables that were 9 feet tall, and you could touch them and a holograph would come up and it would show you different things. One was for genetics, one for history, maybe food items and plants, like that. Now, some new information that came out in this show by Michael Salla was that you could put your hand, like if you were at the animal table, and since they're 9 feet tall, you have to climb into a chair. Obviously, they were made for individuals that were very tall. And you could touch one, and it would tell you all a holograph and tell you all about the star system the animal came from and describe it and its history. You could touch over here, and it would be a different animal. And then in the middle, it would give you what would be the outcome of hybridizing these two species. So, that's new information. Okay. Now, another table you could touch, and a holograph would come up with history, but it was history geared to your DNA, and it would tell you all about your family line and your star systems you've been to, like that. Okay. Now, this was new information. Yeah, it was tailored to you. And they believe it's 50,000 years old. Okay. So I'll do a timeline for you. I've done this timeline before many times. So we have Genesis 1:1, and then the second verse. This is called the gap theory. And we believe this happened millions of years ago and included the events of Atlantis and Lemuria. Then we have this, Adam and Eve, 6,000 years. And we base this on the genealogies we can read in the Bible. And we know that Jesus came. Now, So we have a timeline here we can fit things into. Now, I would like to point out that many, and this includes Michael Salla, many of the people who are coming out with some of this non-terrestrial information are trying to say that ETs created humans, which is not true. And we have many things on our side, one of which is Gene Decode, because we know that Gene Decode had 25 years experience as a nuclear engineer. Also in 1992, he had a half hour with God, during which God downloaded into Gene the next 1,000 years. Now, I had another Patriot subscriber who said she had a similar experience about 1980s for 20 minutes. And she said she received much of the same information Gene had. She just has a different mission. His mission is to bring this forward. And she said, Gene does not lie. We do not lie. No, when you've been face to face with God, no, you don't lie. Okay, there's one God. He created everything. I know when I began the Alien Disclosure by Redneck series, the first one was, God said, start this series, and it was about satellites and technology, and God said, they're trying to mimic me, because God permeates everything. There was one God, and he created all species. Now, Gene does say this, inside our human DNA, we carry the etheric blueprint of all other species, that humans were created first. And that there's one Savior for all species, Jesus Christ. So, I'm just pointing these out because I can pick up these little things. You have to be, ask God for discernment, so you can glean what is a new additional truth that adds to your concept of reality and is true, as opposed to social conditioning. Because many of these non-terrestrial species who are coming in have lost their relationship with God. Maybe millions of years ago, because they allowed technology to replace God. Now, what's inside Bucetti Mountain is neither God nor the devil. It's because the interview between Michael Salla and Peter Moon was going into esoteric and occult, and okay, it's simply technology, nothing more. So, all right. Now let's look ahead. Okay, so some of my sources for this are ShariRaye, Judy, Byington, McAllister TV, Linda Paris. Okay, we know recently we heard about the EBS being liberated by Delta and the Rangers. What was new information for me is ShariRaye brought this out, that it was 150 soldiers who then came in to secure it. And it is secured, and FEMA forces have been neutralized. They changed the access codes, sealed the doors, and then when a lot of the FEMA people returned from their trip to Las Vegas, they found out that the military is now in control. And we need that to bring on the quantum financial system, med beds, all these other wonderful things. Now, ShariRaye is bringing this out. EBS will be replaced by the IBS. It's just a new system. It's called Integrated Broadcast System. and it includes EBS plus military intel on a global basis. So that's going on. Now, McAllister TV, Linda Paris, is bringing this out about HRC. So it's just coming out public that she's been arrested. But I submit that's her clone. I don't even think it's a clone because she's been passed away for quite a while. For a clone to function, the person has to be at least living or comatose. There's some kind of quantum connection. So public would be maybe a double, but it's just public. An arrest of HRC, and she's being convicted of being a spy on President Trump's political campaign. All right. Now, Linda Paris is bringing this out about the Queen. She's also been passed away since about 2019, but they're now making it public that she's passed away, and this will also bring on the emergency broadcast system. So we see another reason the military had to secure that. All right. Now, a prophecy by Prophet Kim Clement in 2009, talking about a spider web in palaces and other places would be removed by God's servants with brooms. And then revival would spread in America, New Zealand, Australia, Africa, England, Scandinavian countries, Greece, Italy. And the dream of Martin Luther King, who in his famous Washington, D.C. speech said, in the future, we will not judge individuals by the color of their skin, but by their character. And Kim Clement is saying this philosophy will spread Russia, Indonesia, China, and the Middle East. And we say, bring it. Yeah, we like that. Okay, a short prayer, a cleansing prayer modeled by Gene Decode. We remove permission to be in us, on us, around us, on earth, off-world, any dimension, any person, place, or thing not of God, any assemblage of fallen angels, AI, nanobot, and other forms of tech, any non-terrestrial species, spirit, thought form, operating system, genetic overlay, past, present, and future. Yeah, that's right. We say get away from us in the name of Jesus. Now, this prayer is from the King James Version of Psalms 108, and the name of it is, Lord, revive us now. O Father, our hearts are fixed to worship our God, to fulfill our pledges, and to live and walk and settle where you, our God, have set for us. We understand that when we honor our vows to you within the guides you have given us, that we shall do valiantly in battle, because it is you, our God, who will tread down our enemies. And we say thank you, Father, Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and the Holy Spirit. And I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge and he is on the move. And I would also like to welcome all 50 states, the First Nations, and all the other nations in which this broadcast is going forth. I love you, and I'll see you soon.